This video is not for reality, but for imagination. If you are watching now in the quiet of the night, put your phone aside, close your eyes for a moment, and let the words paint the pictures inside your mind. Do not think too much about whether this is real or not, for in this video, imagination is what leads the story. Okay, now, gently open your eyes and let me tell you a secret, one that has literally been kept in plain sight in grocery stores all around the world. See, the feta that most people eat, maybe even the stuff sitting in your fridge right now, is an imitation. It's a ghost of the real thing. Because the authentic artifact we are exploring today is a cheese that is, quite literally, older than the Roman Empire. Nearly 3,000 years ago, high up in the rocky, herb-covered mountains of mainland Greece, shepherds were performing a daily, absolutely vital ritual of survival. They milked their sheep and goats, curdled the milk, pressed it into wicker baskets, and preserved it in salt and brine. And guys, this isn't just some romantic legend. The exact process is documented right here in Homer's Odyssey, written way back around 800 BC. The Cyclops Polyphemus was actually practicing the exact ancestral method of making what we now call feta. Now, here's the kicker. While the cheese itself has been made for millennia, its famous name is surprisingly recent. For thousands of years, it was just known by local regional names or simply as tyros, which is the ancient Greek word for cheese. It wasn't until the 17th century that the name actually changed. Venetian merchants began trading this unique, brined cheese, shipping it out in thin slices. They used their Italian word feta, meaning slice, and, well, the name permanently stuck. Which brings us to a really compelling mystery. If the recipe is so ancient and, honestly, pretty simple, curd, salt, and brine, why can't true, authentic feta be made in some modern dairy? In Denmark or Wisconsin or Australia? Why is it so inextricably linked to the harsh, rocky terrain of Greece? To really understand this, we have to look much closer at the chemistry. What no one knows is that the secret is entirely in the milk. Authentic Greek feta legally must be made from sheep's milk or a blend containing no more than 30% goat's milk. Never, ever cow's milk. Just look at the stark contrast between the two. Sheep's milk has nearly double the fat and protein of cow's milk, but more importantly, it contains vastly higher concentrations of specific short and medium-chain fatty acids. These exact compounds are what give real feta its sharp, tangy, distinctively complex flavor. When you use cow's milk with completely lacks these acids, you just end up with a mild, salty, kind of rubbery imitation. And this brilliantly illustrates how the ancient world meets modern science. Back in 2017, scientists made this genuinely fascinating discovery. The exact combination of Greek sheep's milk proteins, the local wild bacteria from animals grazing on wild thyme and oregano, and the traditional brine aging creates a highly specific biological fingerprint. They found bioactive peptides, these unique protein fragments with antimicrobial and antioxidant properties that exist in almost no other food on Earth. Cow's milk imitations, even if they are made with the exact same steps, simply cannot replicate this biochemistry. So let's explore how this chemistry builds into the physical cheese. The process is a beautifully slow, multi-step tradition. The rich sheep's milk is curdled, then the curds are cut large and pressed really gently into molds, which, remember, originally were those wicker baskets Homer mentioned. Then comes the hand salting, slowly drawing out the moisture to form a rind. Finally, the absolute magic happens in the dark. The cheese is submerged in wooden barrels of whey brine for a minimum of 2 months. That's exactly where it develops its famous crumble and intensely tangy bite. But the weirdest part is yet to come. Section 1. The 15-year legal war. We are now leaving the quiet, sun-drenched mountains of ancient Greece and stepping right into the sterile, high-stakes courtrooms of modern Europe. Because believe it or not, this humble shepherd's cheese sparked one of the longest, most bitter, and most expensive food law disputes in international history. It was a massive war against commercial giants from Denmark, Germany, and France who were just flooding the globe with cow's milk imitations. It became this exhausting tug of war, deciding who legally owns the 4 letters FETA. Greece applied for Protected Designation of Origin, or PDO, status in 1994. They got it in 1996. But the massive imitation producers fought back hard, arguing that feta was just a generic term, like cheddar. And crazy enough, they actually got the protection overturned in 1999. Greece appealed, commissioning massive historical and scientific studies to prove the cheese's unique Greek identity. It was re-granted in 2002, challenged again, until finally in 2005, the European Court of Justice issued a permanent ruling protecting the name for Greece. 30 million euros. That is the absurdly high legal cost Greece paid over 15 years just to secure their right to their own 3,000-year-old creation. As a result, within the EU, imitation producers were forced to rename their products to things like white cheese or salad cheese. However, outside the EU, in places like the US, Canada, and Australia, the generic cow's milk imitations still completely dominate the shelves under the name Feta, which means we need to compare them directly. Imagine tasting these two side by side. On one side, the real Greek Feta. It's rich, creamy yet crumbly, with a deeply complex, tangy finish that lingers on your palate for up to 35 seconds. On the other side, the cow's milk imitation. It's perfectly adequate, but it's flat. The dominant flavor is really just salt. The texture is slightly rubbery, and the finish vanishes in about 5 seconds. The difference is night and day. So how do you make sure you aren't being deceived at your local grocery store? Well, here is your insider secret. First, look for the red and yellow European PDO seal. Second, check that it explicitly says Made in Greece. Third, turn the package over and read the ingredients. It absolutely must say sheep's milk or a sheep and goat milk blend. If it says cow's milk, put it right back. And finally, the very best authentic feta is almost always sold submerged in its own protective brine. Section 2. Rules for eating real feta. So, you've secured the authentic artifact. Now what? You might think you just crumble it over some greens. But if you want to unlock the full potential of this ancient food, there are strict, unspoken rules for how to consume it. Let's start with the most famous application, the Greek salad, or Horiatiki. What you see outside of Greece is usually a bowl of lettuce covered in crumbled cheese and vinaigrette. To a Greek cook, this is a tragedy. Authentic Horiatiki has absolute rules. Absolutely no lettuce. The crunch comes from cucumbers and peppers. Absolutely no vinegar. The acidity comes entirely from the tomatoes and the cheese itself. And most importantly, the feta is never crumbled. An uncut, magnificent block is placed whole on top of the vegetables, meant to be broken organically with your fork as you eat, letting its rich fat mingle perfectly with the olive oil. And if you are baking it into a taro pita, a traditional cheese pie, there is a golden rule of ratio. A pure feta pie can be overwhelmingly salty and sharp. The perfect architectural ratio is exactly 70% pungent, tangy feta balanced by 30% fresh, mild cheese like ricotta or Greek anthotheros. This completely tames the salt while letting that complex sheep's milk flavor shine right through the crispy phyllo dough. Now, this next rule is perhaps the most critical, yet the most frequently broken, the temperature rule. Never ever eat authentic feta cold, directly from the fridge. The chill tightly suppresses the delicate, volatile aromatic compounds of the sheep's milk. You must let it sit at room temperature for 20 to 30 minutes before serving. As it warms, the texture softens, and the intensely rich, tangy flavor profile completely opens up. We are nearing the end of our explainer, and I want to lean in and ask you one final question. Beyond the olive oil, the oregano, and the tomatoes, what is the ultimate hidden feta pairing? What is the secret combination that perfectly captures the magic of this cheese? It is feta and watermelon. I know, it sounds wildly counterintuitive to mix a salty, briny sheep's milk cheese with sweet, watery fruit, but the science of flavor is undeniable here. The extreme, refreshing sweetness and high water content of the cold melon create an absolutely flawless foil for the rich fat, salt, and sharp tang of the room temperature feta. It is a Greek summer staple. You have to try it just once, and I promise you, you will be completely convinced. Which leaves us with this final, profound thought. The imitation is adequate. The original is irreplaceable. Authentic Greek feta isn't just a delicious ingredient, it is a 3,000-year-old living document of human history, surviving from the caves of antiquity right into our modern kitchens. It makes you wonder, what other ancient, irreplaceable culinary secrets are hiding in plain sight in your fridge, just waiting for you to discover their true story?